I'm Nicholas, will be your host today. In this podcast, we'll dive into Moonshot Solution with AI. It's a very curious topic. And today we have a special guest called Peter Ward. Can you please introduce yourself, please?
Nicholas, thank you for being a guest on the show. And yep, I'm located in New York, and I believe you're based in the UK, aren't you?
Yep, Birmingham.
All right, very cool. Okay, so I've done this topic a few times at conferences, and I've done a few keynotes. So I try and make it conversational. So I'll jump through this quite quickly. So Nicholas, feel free to interrupt me and ask questions.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll jump in on this.
So the first question I'm going to ask is why is it called Moonshot Solution?
You're stealing my thunder already on the show. Right, okay, on this. Let's just go through this. So let's just talk about introduction, about what the session's about, terms, technology, data, and moonshot ideas. So I'll come on to this. I'm going to come to this at quite a fair, quick pace. Okay, so just very, very quickly, let me just go back a second. That's about that there. So there's a few themes here about technology over the years, impact in the workplace, jobs, and the problem with AI. And of course, quite often you have moonshot ideas is when there are breakdowns, and I'll talk about this, where AI ideas all go wrong, and then AI moonshot ideas. So basically, there's about 5 themes, and it's going to be a bit like a Seinfeld episode. Did you ever watch this show, Nicholas?
Yeah, I can't remember the name. It's very old. It's very classic. I can't remember the name.
Okay, so basically, Seinfeld show was a big show I used to watch Thursday night on NBC back in the 90s. There was always like 4 different themes. There was themes which are just totally unrelated, and it just sort of like merged together at the end. So I've done this presentation a few times, and it generally works. That's all I'm going to say on that. So welcome to this, and thank you for having me on the show. So let's just talk about this. Nicholas, do you got do you use Copilot every day?
Yes, I use Gabe Copilot, and sometimes I use Microsoft Copilot.
Okay. So you're using the paid version, are you?
Yes, at a workplace, yes. But in my personal time, I use the free version of Microsoft Copilot.
No, I understand that on that. So out of interest, who do you work for?
I work for Microsoft partner called Canos. We provide solutions to customers.
All right, very nice little plug there, actually. Yes. Okay. Right. Okay. So with your customers, how Copilot adoptive are they at the moment?
So some of them will want relatively POC, how we can use it to increase productivity within a team. So whether it's help developers and myself work more faster and deliver more values. So within our team, we just have to persuade the client how we can increase values and stuff.
Right. Okay.
And whether it's integrated with maybe a Slack, or we can integrate it with Teams as well.
Right. So do you find there's a little bit of resistance with people saying, "Wow, it's $30 a month. I can't afford that." Is there a little bit of that going on?
No, not that aware of.
Right. Okay. So quite often when we roll this out to clients, there's always a little bit of resistance about Copilot, and it's usually we're evaluating it, we're doing the POC, we don't want to roll it out. And like when you think of salaries, and I think, well, $30 a month is not a lot of money here. There's always that back of resistance, and students will spend more on their subscriptions to Spotify and Netflix than a customer, an employee, than an employer does their employees, which is a bit odd, don't you think? Where Netflix is about consuming. So basically, you've got a tool that will increase productivity, increase profits, lower costs. But we need to evaluate it on this. So basically, when it talks about moonshot ideas, you've got to get good data, good AI, and then you get the moonshot ideas. And then data is that new oil in the economy. And realistically, AI without data is absolutely pointless, and data without AI is pretty much worthless. That's not me being profound. There's a lot of documents and a lot of articles on this. The Economist is a very good article actually on this as well, about how data is becoming the world's most valuable resource. Very quickly about me, I am the founder, former CTO, now CEO of Soho Dragon. We're a Microsoft partner. I'm Microsoft MVP, based in New York. My first version of SharePoint was 2003. Did you use SharePoint much? Did you use SharePoint back in the day much, Nicholas?
Yeah, yeah. We kind of, because I'm like a, I always work for Microsoft like partners and like IT. They always use SharePoint and Office 365.
All right. What was your first version of SharePoint?
I would say 2013, 18, but I'm not that 2003. That's quite. That's,
I know.
you should get a
You're
award.
my age,
Yeah.
Yes, I know. When you start using 2003, you do get grey hairs. Okay. So when you talk about Moonshot, you asked about that idea. Have you heard that? I know it's more of an American term, but a big problem, radical solution, breakthrough technology. When you think of the moonshot, you really think of this guy here a lot. JFK, he had that moonshot idea. I want to put a man on the moon. We're going to put a boatload of money, a boatload of resources. Massive problem. We don't think it can be done. And of course, this was actually done. But there are other moonshot ideas in terms of COVID vaccine, big breakdown in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay. Massive amounts of research to get that vaccine actually done. 3D printing is another one. Okay. DNA, and that was a game changer, basically, where they put money towards this, and that was invented in 1984, where scientists determined some unique DNA characteristics. It was a game changer. That's what that moonshot idea. It's a game changer in how we actually solve crime and actually prevent innocent people going to prison. 3D printing is all game changer. 3D printing was basically invented in 83, where you can manufacture something there and then on site and make it. Okay. IVF. If I said to you 60, 70 years ago, you can take an embryo, a sperm from a man, an egg from a woman, put it together in the lab and actually give it to somebody else to have your baby, you would have said this is this is something out of a sci-fi movie. That's quite common now across the world. Okay. And I'm on that. So let's just talk a little bit about memory lane here. Okay. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because it does lead into the Copilot. Back in the 90s, you had personal computers, LAN networks, emails, and then of course the mid-90s, the internet and email. Then the cell phones, Blackberries came out, online shopping, and smartphones and video conferencing, and of course now you've got the AI agents. So let's just review the impact of this. Okay. When PCs came around, suddenly you could number crunch spreadsheets, word processors. New skills were required. Just as now you've got the prompt engineer. Then it was the keyboard literate, PC literate. Okay, LANs. It meant you could share files with other co-workers without printing them out. Okay. You could on that file sharing as well. Okay, impact of email on the internet. Then suddenly the information could be shared, okay, not just on the walls of your office, you could actually work at home. Okay, so up until the internet was available, you had to come to the office to actually get information. And then suddenly external communications, and you could actually work outside. And of course, you could not only work at home, you could actually work on the other side of the world now on this. So that had a bit of a game changer, because it suddenly meant that your co-workers all didn't need to be in the office. They could be, and hence the word of the remote worker. Okay. And with this case here, with the internet, that remote worker, if you look at New York, or or someone in London, if you graduated, you would generally move to a big city for 3 reasons: to develop your career, earn good money, okay, and then spend money on things you couldn't necessarily buy. Now you can do that without moving to big cities. So that means big cities are going to have to reinvent themselves, where you can work remote and still develop your career. If you want to watch like weirdo Japanese movies, you can now do that streaming. If you want to buy Korean comics, you can buy all that online. You don't need to go to these boutique stores in the big cities. Okay, so as a result, none of that is actually true in 30, 40 years ago. And that's going to be the impact of technology. Let's look at the BlackBerry, okay? Email everywhere, scheduling in real time. And of course, that shifts in work-life balance. That causes, so you didn't just, the 5 o'clock whistle just didn't blow when you finish work. It can continue throughout the night. Online shopping, okay? No one predicted this. So I actually had my eyes tested earlier this year online. Okay, don't need to go to the optician. Okay, so yes, you can buy stuff online, but that's people don't realize that high street was the access point of information and consumerization, where basically if you wanted the travel agent, you'll go to a travel agent. No longer, that's online. If you wanted to buy clothes now, you can now buy that online. And you see this. The only things which are really expanding now are things like coffee shops where you have to consume the products on the high street. And and also with this online shopping factor, like I think you not only buy anywhere, but I think after 3 days of me sitting on the swimming pool on a family holiday, I'm sort of like buying the food for next on my HelloFresh, and I'm also looking and buying stuff online as well. So therefore, you can now do anything. You're on holiday. You're actually difficult to actually get away. You're still connected. The smartphones, suddenly business apps are in your hand. E-commerce payments, you can now do that outside the office. Okay, you could do it on the road. You didn't have to work. Another reason why you didn't have to come to work, okay, because your workhorse machine was actually in your house. It was actually in your hand as well. Okay, and if anything, like the Gen Z generation, smartphone has basically replaced their PC. Okay, video conferencing. This to me is one of the most under talked out technology, particularly since the pandemic, because there used to be something to be said where, our project manager is based in Brooklyn. Okay, now it doesn't matter if they're based really in Brooklyn, Bulgaria, or Bangladesh. Okay, so there was a leveling up process, what COVID did, particularly with video conferencing and connectivity. Okay, so yes, that was a game changer for remote work, but people got accepted to this technology where, well, hang on a minute, your team is spread around the world. That's actually a good thing now. Okay, so let's just talk about these consistencies of these technologies. Okay, a few consistencies is that in every one of these devices I mentioned, you had work and home devices. Okay, so basically, remember, you started off with work PCs. Now people have work and home PCs. Same with cell phones. Companies use you a cell phone, and you have work cell phone. You have work cell phones. Email addresses. You used to have work. Now it's all work and personal. Okay, and that's going to be the same with agents. And like you're going to have work agents like Copilot. Okay, and then you might have personal agents as well. Same as instant messaging. To use Teams at work and WhatsApp at home. Try and organize a family holiday without using WhatsApp. It's just a barrage of emails. Okay. Other consistencies is that rational people in the companies won't recognize that impact at the time, particularly the CFO. Okay, unless that technology is compatible with the spreadsheet, they will say, no, we don't see the value. Okay, so you've got to get not actually the end user on board, but you've got people actually not even using the technology on board. So things like talk about cost reduction, what your competitors are doing. Okay, on this, how headcount can be reduced. Okay, but this is where it's like everybody dreams big until they start seeing the price tag. And Copilot, it's not free. Okay, I often find this is a bit of an odd behavior. Okay, because if you look at the impact of technology over the workplace, okay, this is a typical workplace, 130 years ago. Nicholas, do you know what the first $1 billion company was in America in 100 years ago? Have a guess.
Netflix? No, it's not Amazon.
100 years ago.
No.
The first $1 billion company.
No, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I wasn't born at the time.
Well, no, was I. No, was I. Okay. It was actually US Steel. US Steel was the first US $1 billion company. It had 300,000 employees. Not
wow.
bad. Okay. Yeah. In less than 100 years, look at these numbers. Okay. So some of these companies are 100 times bigger than they were in less than 100 years, and their headcount is a third less. Look at Apple; it's a third less than a steel company. Okay, but look at the profits. So I know you've had globalization going and Cold War, ending, and new markets, but these revenues are quite astonishing. Look at it on terms of these numbers, where the headcount is coming down, but the wealth creation is going up. And these numbers are quite staggering. So surely you're going to get a case where basically you're going to get the first $1 billion company with a headcount of 1. Okay, if you look at those numbers, okay, because you're getting automation coming into the workforce. So let's just talk about that automation in the workforce. There's the trend summary here, okay? I'm noticing this increasingly on all charts, that basically you're now getting a case where, let me just get this in, you're getting basically data departments here, but you're getting AI agents, you're not getting humans on the org chart. Okay, so as a result, headcount reduction is actually occurring. Okay, so obviously that's going to cause a trending problem because companies are actually going to be hiring less. This is a graph from Indeed. Okay, now headcount hiring job vacancies peaked here in 2020, but this is actually reduced by best part of 70% in 3 years. Okay, so yeah, it's reducing. Wow. Okay, in 3 years. So it's not just reducing, but look at the speed it's reducing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you might, so, and what at Soho Dragon, we actually do sort of like do a bit of recruitment ourselves. Okay. But we've noticed that a lot of the companies are not hiring entry-level jobs. They're hiring mid and senior level jobs. And now that's already well, but how do you become a senior level job person when you can't get an entry job? Okay. This, these numbers, this slide's nothing particularly big, new, profound, 60% decrease of 35%. Okay, not just a problem in the US, it's going right across the Western world. Okay, few headlines here going on. Again, you see this all the time now. Hiring impact, Zuckerberg, AI jobs replace mid-level jobs, halting hiring in Korea. IBM replaced 200 roles, AI agents. Okay, so you're now seeing the AI agent on the org chart. Now, with that, so as a result of those virtual employees, okay, it's going to take automation because AIs are having their own memories. They will work 24 hours a day as well. So the other thing as well is that, particularly in the US, you earn more money as you get more senior, but you have a greater headcount. Okay, that's a big, okay. But if your headcount is reducing because people are using AI agents, then it's that innovation area is going to be how many agents you're managing or how much innovation density you've got that you can produce. Okay, so if you're thinking about a career growth, stop asking about how can I get more and start asking how can I innovate more with AI. Okay, because that's where your yardstick is going to be, because your team size is actually decreasing in size. So let's just take a quick pause. Okay, you can now do more with less. That's not a profound statement. Generate more wealth with fewer people. Not necessarily profound, but look at the numbers I presented. People don't realize the big impact that is actually happening. Cities, companies are going to be, are going to have to change with this. Okay, behavioral changing. Okay, and then that technology is affecting both society and in economically as well. Okay, and hiring is going to change as well in terms of we don't need big cities. Do we actually, if we're a US company, do we need everyone based in the US? Okay, so obviously, today you've got the small, medium-sized business. Tomorrow, it's the small, mighty-sized business. Okay, so that 50-person company can do what it used to take 500 or 55,000 people. So it's all very well saying, look, I'm a Tata type consultancy with 10,000 employees. So what? I'm a small company and I've got 5,000 agents. Okay, which are probably, which can work 24 hours. Okay, so let's just go back to this good data, good AI, moonshot solutions. So how do you get to that moonshot in the AI? Okay, so let me just talk about where it all goes wrong. So we talked about data. Okay, now if you ever want to know if you ever want to know if you've got too much data, okay, I suggest you look at the Amy Yang TED Talk actually. Okay, and I actually believe a lot of data is actually misdirected. And if you want to know, if you want to understand what I'm saying, look at this TED Talk. So basically, Amy was talking about how basically bad data actually destroyed Nokia. Okay, because Nokia had lots and lots of data points about the world's population. And Amy said, none of this is actually going to work. This data points are going to work correctly. Okay, because it doesn't take into account of when the smartphone comes out, there's going to be a shift in buying behavior. Nokia said that they've got thousands of data points. You've only got hundreds. Okay. And so Nokia entire business model was based on a false promise of all the wrong data points. And you have to remember that big data all comes from the same place. Okay. The past. And the volume data isn't really a guide to what's important, or basically its reliability. Okay, good example of this is the Titanic. Okay, the Titanic, they had notes stating where icebergs were going to be. Of course, the iceberg that actually sunk the ship was a rather big data point. Okay, and they didn't know how to act on it. They didn't realize how big it was. Okay, other points as well with data points is you've got to make sense of information. Nicholas, have you actually been to New York?
Yeah, twice.
Okay, have you driven around much?
No, I just take the train and walk.
So I live in Hoboken, okay, and if you're driving around to New Jersey in through the Lincoln Tunnel, you'll know Hoboken is on the right-hand side. Okay, yet you're presented with this sign that says go straight ahead for Hoboken. So you sort of realize, wait a minute here, this makes no sense. The sign makes no sense. And then you realize I've got to go straight ahead, else I'm basically going to go through the Lincoln Tunnel, even though Hoboken is actually on this side, is towards the right of the sign. So you get this unconscious bias where you're basically looking at data that's actually not correct. Okay, and even though you might have historical information that you think the data is actually correct, you can't make sense of it. Okay, so I've now learned this lesson, but often so I cause a couple of multi-car pile-ups going through the Lincoln Tunnel when I realize I'm actually in the wrong lane on that. Okay, emotional viewpoint as well. Like I said, I live in Hoboken, which is basically to the west of New York. It's actually in New Jersey. Okay, most people in New York, their viewpoint of data is all the New York subway. I think half of these people I speak to in New York think I get a canoe to work. Okay, the Microsoft office is in Times Square, which is right here. Okay, I can basically get from Hoboken to Times Square in 27 minutes. Okay, from Williamsburg here, it's actually 29. So it's quicker for me to get to Times Square from Hoboken to Williamsburg. But anyone in Williamsburg will say that's not, how can that be? You're not on the subway, you're in a different state. It's an emotional connection to viewpoints of data that they don't know, because their viewpoint of their data is very much more, is much more on the, is in the New York based. Nicholas, most people who listen to this podcast, are they in the UK or is it a bit of a global situation?
Bit of everywhere.
Okay, so a good example in London. Okay, most people in London, if you ever want to buy affordable or more affordable property in London, okay, look at places which are not on the subway map. Okay, because most people buy property and they're basing their decisions based on the subway map, zone 1 to 6. Okay, rather than perhaps something which is in zone 1 or zone 2, which has a bus route. Okay, so therefore that is the reference point that people buy property of mass transit, which is visible to them, but bus routes are generally not visible to people. Flow of information, okay, is important. Data, public, is not, ChatGPT came out, actually, ChatGPT came out in 2019. Did you know that, Nicholas? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
Okay, so therefore, if you had access to that kind of those kind of tools in 2019 as a business or a consulting firm, you would have definitely an advantage of your competitors. A lot of data is actually hidden. I talk about the subway maps. Okay, incorrectly weighing the importance of data, accessing information. This basically means buying it. Okay, good tooling and good skill sets. Okay. The tooling is important because you've got to separate the noise and the signal, and skill sets as well, because you've got to, it's for the reports and getting that information in real time. And of course, the filters as well. Let's just talk about edge effects with data as well. You will always look at trends. Every time you see a trend, you will also see counter trends. A good example of this is podcasts. You've got the Joe Rogan podcast, which is 3 hours. You've got TikTok videos, which are 30 seconds. Okay, so just because there's a big trend going on, I would also look at the other trends, because that's also where your competition is not operating as well. Okay, let's just look at Copilot. Okay, are you a bit of a Star Wars fan, Nicholas?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you knew Ryan Gosling's in Star Wars, did you?
And not in person, but I think I saw his character in Star Wars.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, yeah, you could ask Copilot about names, about about this, about the new Star Wars, and it can come up with some okay stuff. Not the best creative things, but quite often it can't actually sort of, when you sort of think about names of movies in Copilot, like for example, what movie is this? Do you know what movie this is? This might be, I know you might be a bit into this.
Yeah.
You don't know the movie?
No.
Have you heard of Harry Met Sally?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay.
Missing out.
It's Harry reached out to Sally. Okay.
Oh,
It's
wow.
mixing up the vocabulary.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just look at this one. That's Ferris Bueller's. What movie is this?
I'm not sure.
Ocean's 11, but of course, according to Copilot, Ocean's 11 version 2. Obviously, a salesperson. It's mixing all things up. Okay, so let's just talk about how to create moonshot solutions. Okay, so the other thing you've got to sort of look at. Sometimes you need to look at things like the emotional factor. Okay, if you and I were sitting down 25 years ago thinking about Uber, you would probably say you want to have faster cars and more taxis. That is not the success of Uber. What Uber did was it reduced the anxiety of the user. Okay, it got visibility of where it is. Okay, it could tell you how much the price was, and it could actually tell you when it's going to get to that destination. And that's super important, particularly with the family, where you might want to spend a bit more money to basically get to the airport on time. And if you miss an airport flight with your family, like the entire vacation is completely ruined, and you'll get the blame on that. Okay, and that's where it is, where it's not just all data science nerds who need to say, how do you make it better? You need to look at the emotional factor. Okay, and that's a difficult sell. A CFO wants to reduce costs, doesn't necessarily want to care about the emotions of the users. Post-it notes as well. Do you know the story about post-it notes, about how that all came about?
No.
Okay. Basically, they invented the glue that didn't work. It wouldn't stick, but they did. When they removed the glue, it didn't leave a mark. And that's how post-it notes came out. Right. Okay. You've also got to be creating something that basically maybe is a total pain point, solve a problem that no one knew existed, and that might be a total pain point. Okay. So have a look at this for this.
Seven in 10 Brits have been targeted by scammers. And it's not just our grandparents. I was one of them. But this film isn't about getting scammed. This is about getting even. Meet my friend, Daisy.
Hello, scammers. I'm your worst nightmare. I'm an AI created by O2 to waste phone scammers' time. So, W's then a dot.
3 times W and then dot.
I think your profession is bothering people, right?
I'm just trying to have a little chat.
It's nearly been an hour. For the love of...
Gosh, how time flies. It's showing me a picture of my cat, Fluffy.
It's showing you the picture of your cat, Fluffy.
Stop calling me dear, you stupid...
Got it, dear. Because while they're busy talking to me, they can't be scamming you. And let's face it, dear, I've got all the time in the world.
So whilst you're out enjoying life, Daisy and O2 are here fighting scammers, taking calls and wasting hundreds and hundreds of hours of scammers' time. If you want to help Daisy and O2 ruin a scammer's day, you can report scam numbers to 7726. Because you can't do it all on your own, can you, Daisy?
Who says I am, love? Speak soon, scammer.
Nice.
So that's a good idea of you're solving problems that basically that no one really thinks actually exists. But now I've shown you that people might are going to say, actually, that's a service I actually wouldn't mind paying for as well. Making things quicker and faster isn't always cheap. Isn't always a win. If you ever go to these travel websites like Kayak or TripAdvisor, they actually deliberately delay their search results. So it looks like the tool is actually working more for them. It's bringing back more information for them. So it gives you that illusion. Okay. Other things as well. Do you, Nicholas, are you familiar with with a remarkable? Do you know anyone with a remarkable?
In what way, sorry, remarkable?
You know the remarkable tablet. Do you know? Are you familiar with a remarkable tablet?
I haven't heard of that.
Okay, remarkable tablet is all it does is just it's electronic paper. Okay. It's an electronic notebook. Okay. It's about $700, $800. It's a lot more expensive than a Surface, but it does one thing only. It only does one thing. Okay. So when you have someone that does one thing, people will think it's a very good advice, a very good tool.
Yeah.
Like Swiss Army knife has many blades, but not many of them are very good on this. So therefore, just because it does one thing and it's expensive does not mean this makes economists go crazy, because you're increasing the price, reducing the functionality, but demand is increasing. Let's look at Dyson. Okay. Dyson vacuum cleaners are $800 in the US. Okay. When these came out, this is $1 billion industry, a multi-billion-dollar industry. When this came out, there was no data to suggest that Dyson, that there's a market for $800 vacuum cleaners. Okay. And in fact, I would almost like say, if anyone who can afford an $800 vacuum cleaner is basically can afford cleaners to clean the house. Okay. However, okay, it makes no sense. But just because there's no data, and there's no data, it does not mean there's not actually a market on this. Okay, in the interest of time, I'll just skip a few slides. Okay, I'll just do the wrap up here. I've just talked about the technology over the years, the impact of the workplace, job market, where AI goes wrong with bad data or looking at the wrong data, and a few moonshot ideas I've discussed about on that in terms of about price, data, looking at solutions that you don't actually want, which people aren't aware of. I would say all companies are going to be technology companies, but the companies that scale will also be data companies. If you sort of ever come around my house at night and I doing what's like Geography Channel or National Geographic, and I noticed there's bees, okay, and with a beehive, and like they do what's known as a waggle dance, okay, and basically you think, well, hang on, 20% of the bees just go off and just do what they want at random, or 80% do sort of like actually get the pollen from the nearest flower bed and bring them back. That 20%, okay, is called innovation. Okay, it's because you might sort of wonder, why doesn't the queen bee discipline these bees, or the governance police bees do anything about that? Why do they tolerate such innovation? But without these random bees, the hive is trapped in existing nectar supply, and it will starve to death. It'll be too reliant on a single source of nectar. There's no capacity for adaptation. Discovery is not new. They can't get lucky. So rejection and failure isn't a verdict. It's actually data. So I suggest you use it. And this is where, when it comes back to that whole, like, well, we need to get value propositions with AI. If you're doing 80%, if you're doing 10 AI pilots, Copilot pilots, and 8 out of 10 don't work, the real question is, what was going on with those 8 out of 10? Okay, that's not a failure. Was it the wrong requirements? Was it the wrong people? That's what you should look at. Okay, and similar with the bees. Okay, if that innovation just didn't exist, okay, you wouldn't get any innovation in a company. And quite often companies try and stamp this out as much as possible, particularly in the IT department, where, well, I can't see any value in this. Well, let's pilot it. Let's just try and basically have a little bit of inefficiency and see what we can learn. People ride the wave with the Copilot. I've seen great productivity wins with my coworkers and customers. This is my reading list. And I would say, enjoy the rest of the podcast. And Nicholas, do you have any questions?
Yeah, it's quite scary how AI is moving, and the only thing that might worry about everyone is the human connections and the social aspect of work. Because if the workplace is reducing employees, they'll have agents. There's no connection being made. Like, do we want that?
Well, that's true. We have this problem at Soho. We talk about we don't do a Christmas party. Okay, yeah. Because people are just remote. We do a retreat every 2 years, but we don't have a Christmas party because it's just, it's like doing, it's like a virtual happy hour. Virtual happy hours are a little bit just contrived and just boring. Okay, people want that human connection.
Yeah, I think because if you have like a company with full of agents and like half of them, and then half of them is employee, you'd be talking to an agent instead of talking to a human being.
Well, that's true. Well, people are doing that more for therapy now. I've noticed. I've heard people say, "Oh, yeah, I was talking with ChatGPT on on a vacation." But you're absolutely right in terms of that corporate culture where even at Soho, we saw like, in the US office, we don't really hire. It doesn't really work out too well when we hire younger employees, because younger employees want to work in the office. They want to work with a pool of younger people as well.
Yeah.
And most of the people in the office have got family and kids, and they just want to leave at 6 o'clock and go home. So there's that there's a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, I think we need to do more of a helping younger people, whether it's more apprentice and stuff, because it's quite scary how AI is moving. So it means that they might
I agree.
Losing their career if falling behind, like if your grandkids and kids later on.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree on that. All right. Are we come to the end of the show? Shall I stop sharing?
Yeah. So thanks a lot, Peter. Hope everyone enjoyed, and see you soon for the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas.